So good day, everyone. Welcome to another IMS Global Learning Consortium webinar. Today's topic is putting the trust in your educational apps and data privacy. So we will be reviewing our IMS Trusted Apps program and discussing the importance of privacy. You'll be hearing from our panelists, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. So we'll go ahead and introduce our panelists. My name is Monica Watts. I'm the Director of K-12 Engagement at IMS Global. And Kevin Lewis is our project manager for apps vetting at IMS Global. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone.
We also have with us Dr. Tim Clark, VP of K-12 Programs at IMS Global. Hey, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Kate Crawford, Director of Digital Learning and Media at Fayette County Schools in Georgia. Hey, Kate.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. And Daisy Bennett, Privacy Officer at Instructure.
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. So we're going to start with Kevin providing us an overview of the Trusted Apps program.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for coming. I'm going to stop my video so you can concentrate on my slides here. So the Trusted Apps program, there's a few moving pieces in the Trusted Apps program, and it all starts with the rubric, which took about 3 years in the making to finally get it to a place where the IMS global community could really get behind it and really support what the rubric has become. And under the Trust Apps program, we also have developed a data privacy specification, which you will see and hear about much later. And then, of course, the Trusted Apps Seal that has blown up, tremendously over the past couple of weeks. And I'll give you a little more information about that as well, as long as the IMS Product Directory, where you can see all of the members and suppliers who have earned the seal and also have that data privacy specification. Let's move to the next slide. So, like I stated, here a few seconds ago, that it always starts with the rubric. The rubric took about 3 years to make and to get to a good place to where it is now. This rubric was designed in collaboration with K-12 leaders across the nation, all IMS members. We also included higher education leaders across the nation, as well as a few state departments of education. And we all got together and we wanted to look at, what does privacy look like? There's a lot of different ways to interpret privacy and how to develop a set of criteria for, reviewing an application or reviewing a privacy policy. And we wanted to simplify that process, sort of drill it down to something that is more feasible, because the idea is that teachers need to, when a teacher uses an application or wants to use an application in their classroom, they don't have the days or the weeks that it takes to do a complete review of that application. So we decided to go with a rubric that was very simple but very effective at the same time. And so this rubric addresses the criteria that you see here: what data is being collected, how is that data being secured, who are your third parties, and what data do they have access to, and if there are any advertisements at all, and what do those advertisements look like. We decided that these 4 categories were the core areas, or the core areas that should be focused on when looking at a privacy policy or reviewing an organization for their privacy culture, as well as the policy. And these were the 4 core areas that were consistent across the board when we worked with, like I said, our K-12 members, higher ed, suppliers, and state departments of education. So in that third bullet point where we talk about expectations, since I did mention we work with suppliers, we wanted to set the expectation. We didn't want it to be the typical, this is what we're looking for, conform to what we're saying or else. We wanted to set that expectation so that it's not as forceful on the suppliers to say, hey, do this, or we'll find someone else who could. It's more of a collaboration, because a lot of the conversations we have with suppliers, they are really very dedicated to privacy, and they want to know what that expectation is. They want to know what schools are looking for when they are reviewing a policy or reviewing their organization, and they want to do what they can to assist in getting there, or helping to just educate the community on why certain things are the way they are in their policy, and I guess get rid of some of those red flags that are robust in most, I would say, K-12 and higher ed review processes. So any IMS member can be trained to use the rubric and to vet application. It typically involves just working with me and going through the process, and me showing you what the different lines of the rubric, and going through a privacy policy, and just giving you little tidbits here and there about the nuances and the complexities of interpreting a privacy policy. Because one thing I've learned, that there is no one way, since there are so many different types of suppliers, whether they're a data processor or, they the way they handle the data. Some only process it, some actually hold it. Whether they're a processor or a controller, we there's not one way to have a sort of a blanket rubric to meet all of the, I guess, the criteria for vetting a lot of these organizations. So there has to be a bit of a way to discern the different types of suppliers that we are vetting. So we decided that there needed to be a way for a lot of our suppliers, or in our institutions. Well, we'll start with our institutions here, to show that they've made a commitment and they're dedicated to privacy, and that this seal, so what it requires for an institution to get this seal is they work with me on just learning about the rubric, the process, because the process involves not only vetting the rubric, not only vetting with the rubric against the privacy policy, but also contacting that supplier and asking the tough questions, asking the questions that aren't as clear in the privacy policy, to conduct a thorough review. More of that, if you see something, say something approach. If you don't understand, or even if you have the slightest assumption that a statement in the policy doesn't sit very well with you, or doesn't meet your own institution standards, reach out to that supplier and ask those specific questions, whether it's in an email or a phone call. And I know this is time consuming for most schools. I know you don't have the time to reach out to the suppliers. And that's really where we come in, and we can help assist you with that and getting those questions answered. So that ensures that the reviews that you are conducting are trustworthy. And I would say that's what that piece alone really sets us apart from most, is because it's that collaboration with the supplier, and making sure that we get every question answered, and that every review that is out there and every supplier that has this seal can be trusted, because they've worked with us and they've answered every single question and have demonstrated that they have knowledge of privacy, and that they can accurately produce any material that you need to show evidence of their efforts for their privacy um, efforts there. So, like I said, so suppliers go through the same process with us to earn this seal as well. Suppliers they work with me, and we go through it line by line. So there's 15 questions in the rubric, those 4 categories that we saw there, 15 questions. And we go through line by line, and we answer every single one of those questions from the rubric, and the supplier supplies evidence of all of those requirements, or those expectations that have been set in the rubric, where they can show evidence that this is how we meet it. And that's been a very valuable tool there. So it's a quick process, but it's I would say, a very detailed process, because I would say the most valuable part of that is, a lot of the times, what you're looking for in a privacy policy isn't always there. And so, with the reviews that we have conducted in collaboration with a supplier, they're able to give us a lot more information that's not included in that privacy policy, and explain things, in a less legalized, I guess, legalese sort of format, and really break it down and tell us exactly what some of those things mean. And that is all for me. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. I want to start off by saying that the IMS Global District Partnership has been instrumental for us for seamless access and successful teaching and learning for students here in Fayette. It's really kept myself and our CTO, Jim Farmer, engaged in many meaningful conversations that have also led to a lot of positive outcomes for the district as a whole. And this Trusted Apps is no different. One of the things that I've tried to accomplish is helping our teachers focus on what the most important aspects are of any new application. So if Monica, if you could forward. Thank you, ma'am. I like to think this is our digital ecosystem here in Fayette, but I like to focus on what I call really the trinity of student data protection. And that is ClassLink as our district portal, Schoology as our LMS, and Infinite Campus as our student information system. Infinite Campus to me really has set a gold standard of practice with privacy policies, and they seem to stick to the mantra, and as well as ClassLink and Schoology for that matter, that the provider never owns the data. They only act as at the direction of the school or district, something that is covered in the Trusted Apps Rubric for data collected, security, and third-party data sharing that Kevin just discussed. If you would, go ahead, Monica, to the next slide. One of the things that I was challenged with as a leader was trying to provide guidance for our teachers to make informed choices. Teachers are the professionals. I had a list at one point that I tried to maintain, but as I'm sure many of you know, if you've ever tried to keep any kind of data on different apps as they come onto the scene for education, that is nearly impossible, if not a full-time job. So I was very excited to see what IMS was doing in this space. The rubric criteria, that Kevin just reviewed has really been key for us. Teachers who want to use an application in a classroom, they don't have, as Kevin mentioned, days or weeks to vet that app. They're usually excited about something new, and we really needed a means to help them find the information, the data privacy specifically information on apps that they were of course considering for use. We are really excited about this because the process moving forward, and of course we're still kind of finalizing this, would be to provide the information via ClassLink so that it would be a dashboard of sorts so that teachers could search the app that they're particularly interested in and see if that app has been vetted by IMS and by the many different leaders that I know Kevin's working with. At this time, we don't allow any other applications on ClassLink except for those that are purchased by the district. So that kind of adds another, what I like to call a wrangling of the wild, wild west out there so that our teachers understand that, these are the resources that have been vetted by the district. And also now we have that partnership with IMS to help us with this. I really believe too, getting curriculum involved is key for us as a district. It's not just digital learning and digital services necessarily. It's a partnership with our curriculum team. They've been vital partners for us as well. And then, talking about the providers acquiring a Trusted Ed App Seal. As leaders, we feel it's our responsibility and expectation to ensure that our vendors understand that not having a certification in place means we may or may not do business with you. That is, something we tried to stick with across the board, whether that be LTI integrations or one roster. It just is critically important to the day-to-day teaching and learning that happens for a school system. So we just are grateful. We're excited about this. And I would just encourage, I know they're going to share my contact information. So I would encourage anyone that has any questions for me specifically to please reach out. Thank you, Monica. And
Thanks,
Daisy.
Thanks, Kate. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're really excited to be here and talk to you about this program. It's really been an amazing process to go through with IMS. They've been just such an amazing partner in our space and in our community to help us understand what our community needs are. As we mentioned before, I'm the privacy officer for Instructure. We provide the Canvas LMS. I joined the Canvas family about 6 months ago, and it's been just an amazing whirlwind of excitement and challenges given our current state of affairs with COVID and all the remote learning, but it's really given us here at Instructure an opportunity to really expand our privacy programs and work much more closely with our districts and our institutions and partners like IMS. Next slide, please. So then I'm going to briefly talk about these 4 points. As I'm sure you can all see, this could be its own 2-hour presentation. So I'm just going to hit all of these at a high level and help everyone understand how this fed into earning the Trusted Ed Apps seal for us. Next slide, please. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody knows that the technology environment that we currently have for our education efforts is incredibly complex. There are so many tools out there. There's so many different vendors and partners and people providing different services, which causes a lot of confusion in this space, not because I think anyone's doing anything bad or anyone's doing anything intentionally wrong. I think all the vendors and partners we work with have privacy really at the forefront of their processes, but it's complex because the regulatory environment itself is really complicated, and depending on where you're offering your services or you're providing services to students across the world, there's so many different laws and policies, there's regulations, and it's often difficult to keep up with those laws. As part of what I do here at Instructure is help to ensure that Canvas complies with all those laws. So if it's complex to me, and I'm a privacy attorney, you can imagine how complicated it is for our parents, the educators. Not all schools have the robust program that Kate's school does. Some schools don't have as many resources, and so they rely upon these types of certifications and their educational tech providers to actually provide clarity and guidance. And as we know, regulation struggles to keep up with technology. So it's really, I believe it's incumbent upon our providers and suppliers and the people actually processing these data to hold themselves to the highest standards and to, as Kate said, ensure that the schools and the students have clarity and understanding that their data belongs to them, not to us, and us being providers, and that they really have the opportunity to control that data and ensure that it's being processed appropriately. So next slide. So I threw up a couple tips and tools here that we have used to build out our privacy program here at Instructure that aligns with the Trusted Ed App seal. So we use the Privacy by Design framework. Those of you in the privacy space will be familiar with it. This was something that was developed by Ann Kavalkian, who used to be the privacy commissioner for the state of Ontario, I believe, in Canada. She built out this framework a while ago, gosh, probably 10, 15 years ago. But it's an amazing, what I call top-down program to actually help everybody in your organization understand privacy and how it actually impacts how you develop products, how you do marketing, how you do everything in your organization. And so if you're interested in getting into the Privacy by Design framework or learning more, I recommend that you go to the IAPP, which is the International Association of Privacy Professionals. They have lots of free resources on how to access the Privacy by Design framework. Here at Instructure, we have the Privacy by Design framework. We also do regular data mapping and tracking. We do data privacy impact assessments for our product development, any type of new uses or historical uses. We regularly review how data are being used in our organization and whether that continually aligns with our framework and our guiding principles. And then our final step, all this, what I call under the hood work that we do to build out this privacy program, allows us to actually meet these needs for these different certifications. And the IMS TrustEd App Seal has actually been an amazing process. Next slide, please. So we support what I call radical transparency. And that is, I really do use that as a true, what I call catchphrase, because it really helps me convey to everybody why transparency and clarity in your data uses are the most important thing as a provider. We operate in a really sensitive space. We're handling student data, instructor data, educational data, institutional data. And as a provider, we need to make sure that everybody's really clear on what we do and what we don't do and how we use these data. So if you're interested in learning more about our foundational privacy principles, I highly recommend you go to our website. That's the Instructure website. And as part of our privacy program and our radical transparency, the Trusted Ed App Seal is part of how we demonstrate how we demonstrate these principles. So if we can hop to the next slide. So what we found when the IMS team launched the Trusted Ed App Seal, we went through it with Kevin and the team. Kevin and I went through our privacy policy and our practices and the rubric to make sure that we were meeting all of the requirements of the rubric. I believe that this is a really important tool to demonstrate our commitment as a supplier to privacy. We now also use that rubric as part of our internal privacy auditing program. Instructure has a security program that has robust auditing to certain standards with respect to security, like the SOC 2 and some of the other standards that are very well known. But in the privacy space, there's not as many standards. There's not as many. There's some that have come out, like NIST has recently come out with their privacy framework. But in the privacy space, it feels a little squishy, and it feels a little. Not everybody totally understands what it means. And I think this rubric is a great high-level overview in a way that people can understand, and vendors and suppliers can actually demonstrate how they meet those standards. And it helps schools, students, parents, anyone who's interested to understand, oh, these are the points, and they're in plain language, because I understand privacy policies can be complicated and hard to understand. So I think this rubric goes a really long way, excuse me, in helping the industry and everybody else understand why it's so important to have the seal and how the seal actually helps them. And again, kudos to the IMS team. They were amazing. They provided clarity and support. They helped us understand what we needed to do. And we really appreciate that they're driving standards in the ed tech industry that provides consistency and clarity for everybody. And my information is on the final slide. So if there's any suppliers on the call who want to know what it was like to go through the process, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share that information. Thank you all.
Thanks, Daisy. And big thanks to Kevin and Kate for sharing the information and Kate's unique perspective from a school district. So what I want to do is just take a few minutes, actually talk about next steps for the Trusted Apps program. And Kevin talked about the process that we go through, the collaborative process, but I wanted to focus on the actual requirements as well for educational institutions and for suppliers. So for an educational institution, you must be an IMS contributing member, complete the online or individual training that Kevin mentioned, conduct a review on an application with an IMS staff member, and then collaborate with IMS Global to resolve any issues that may arise in the app vetting process. If you are a supplier, the requirements are you must be an IMS contributing member, affiliate, or Trusted Apps Alliance member. Same process in terms of submitting an application for review. And then you have the self-assessment to ensure that the application meets the required data privacy criteria, and then the collaborative process of working with IMS staff to resolve any issues that may arise in the vetting process. As far as seeing what suppliers have achieved the seal, that is in our certified product directory. So the easiest way to get there is imscert.org. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at some screen captures of the product directory so we can kind of see that process. I've done a search here for an application, and what my results come back is this is highlighted in blue because this is an actual supplier that's a member of IMS, and we can see what standards they're certified in. And we also can see that they've been vetted. So if I were to click there, I would get more information, and we can see that it was vetted by Daisy. And once we click on the view details, it provides us with a more comprehensive look at the actual results. So up here at the top are the regulatory compliance and how they fare. As we scroll down, we're able to see the aggregated results of the areas of the rubric. So where they meet data collection, security, third-party data, and advertising. And then if I continue to scroll down, I get more information about the actual rubric areas like the data collected. And I can see where they meet, partially meet, or doesn't meet. And then you have the user notes, and I can hover over those user notes and I'm able to see more information as well. In this particular example, they do meet all of the criteria, so they receive the IMS Data Privacy Seal. But let's say that another scenario where the application would not qualify for a Data Privacy Seal, the story doesn't end there. We'll definitely, it's a collaborative process. So as Kevin said, we want to work with you and the team to show what you need to do to achieve that seal. So it's a continuous process. Right now, we currently have 17 suppliers that have achieved the seal and 10 that are actively working on it. So we've had, since the little bit of time that the program was launched, incredible success so far and interest in achieving the seal. What's coming next for us in the spring of 2021, around the end of March, is the Trusted Apps dashboard will be available, and that'll enable state and local education agencies to, as Kate mentioned, be able to see vetted information and district or state provided applications on the dashboard. And this is going to be really key, as Kate mentioned as well, for the teachers and the curriculum coordinators and directors in your teaching and learning department, so they can easily see the applications that have been vetted. We also want to invite you, if you're interested in staying connected with us. The Trusted Apps and Student Data Privacy ILN meets once a month on the third Thursday, 1 o'clock. Discussions that they review are the Trusted Apps program, student data privacy, and tools and applications. So if you're interested in that, please don't hesitate to contact one of us at IMS, and we'll make sure that we get you registered so that you can attend the Trusted Apps ILN. So I think we have now some time for Q&A. Kara, I don't know if there's any questions that are coming into the queue or already been. Nope, looks like we do have a few.
Yes, actually, I think perhaps Kevin can speak a little bit about the collaboration. The question is, are vendors vetting or self-evaluating their own tools?
Absolutely. So this is a very common question. And I've heard the concerns, sort of both sides. What if a vendor vets their tool? They're going to want to show themselves, fully meeting expectation, always in the green. They're going to show themselves in the best light. I thought so too, but it's had the opposite effect. The vendor, the suppliers have been very, very honest in their reviews, and a lot of the times, once they conduct their review of their own tool, um, someone in the IMS staff gets a notification, and then we go back through it and review it. And a lot of the times it's all over the place. So it's not all in the green, it's everywhere. You'll see it, does not meet in a lot of areas. You'll see it partially meets in some areas, and you'll see it meeting in some areas. And the reason for that is, other than they are being very honest, they are trying to learn, what that expectation is and how they can meet it, but they don't see the weight of the question. So once they answer the question, they don't see, they don't see the answer key as to what will get them in the all green, sort of the fully meets expectation section or column of that screen that you just saw there under those expectations. So they answer the questions to the best of their ability, and they don't see the answers until afterwards. And a lot of times the supplier doesn't know that it has to get listed. So it doesn't show up anywhere until it's been reviewed by someone in IMS, and we're able to work with them before we publish it. So once they conduct that self-review, it doesn't get published, and they don't really see it until someone from IMS reaches out and says, hey, let's go review this together and make sure that we are all on the same page and that you fully understood the questions. So yes, they are able to review their own tools, and we encourage that because it gives us a great starting point.
Okay, great. Another question that came in, we've had an exponential increase in the use of applications like Zoom, as well as our LMS. Obviously, this is due to current pandemic conditions. We are finding it increasingly more difficult to review third-party applications for platforms outside our LMS, like Zoom. Are there plans for IMS to have similar process for vetting apps that are not LMS specific, given the increasing use of these platforms?
Yes. So we have started because we have seen a very high demand for a lot of those applications that aren't members of the IMS community, to have them vetted through the IMS process as well. So we do have a section in the product directory that addresses all of those non-member apps, and you can filter it on the side. You'll see it, it'll show you that these are non-members, but they've been vetted through the IMS process. So yeah, we do have, and I believe Zoom is now a member of IMS, and they have been vetted And like you said, so any reviews that you see in the product directory, you can trust that we've worked with someone in the organization and that they have made a very, thorough commitment to privacy because they've gone through the process, and they've worked with someone in the organization to get that relayed to the community as far as their efforts on privacy. I hope that answered the question.
Great. And Kevin, and to the panel, what happens if a supplier doesn't meet the requirements?
If a supplier does not meet the requirements, we work with them on the specific areas of, so you can imagine it's incredibly difficult to include all of the pieces in a privacy policy that are out there as far as privacy requirements go, because you have the state laws, you have the local laws, you have the independent district, set of criteria. And a lot of the times it's incredibly difficult if you're the person that's having it right, these policies to include every single thing that everyone across the nation is looking for in your policy. So we work with them, we show them, sort of what that expectation is. And that's why we vet more than to the privacy. We vet the culture of that institution. We make sure that you're not just answering a question, that it's part of the everyday culture. Everyone in your organization understands privacy, even though it's not mentioned specifically in your privacy policy. It is something that's addressed within I would say the privacy profile of the organization is what I call it, to make sure that they are reaching that level of expectation. So if they don't meet it at the moment, we work with them to see, okay, how can we get there? Whether it's something that they put on the roadmap to work towards, and then we don't supply the Trusted App Seal until they've met that criteria, or they've given a very good explanation as to why they aren't able to do something, and this is how they are meeting that criteria, sort of in a different way that would be acceptable to most school districts. And I think right now a lot of that conversation comes around third parties and advertisements. Is it okay to advertise your own products to schools? Like if I had a statement that says we may serve ads that are of interest to you, is it okay for me to advertise my own products and tools? If I'm a portfolio company and I want to advertise new features or new products coming out to you, is that advertisement okay versus some random advertisement from somewhere else that you've seen across the board? So things like that, where they don't meet the criteria, to where we have to work with them and get a good explanation as to why some of the things that you do are being done, and then seeing if that's acceptable to most schools like you to make that decision. So
Thanks, Kevin. Next question, is there an annual recertification process?
yes, like all IMS standards, we recertify for their privacy every year.
Okay, and how do you go about vetting the culture of a supplier? Do you look at what frameworks they use or how they act publicly? Are there other criteria?
All of the above. We look at, like you said, definitely the framework. A lot of them are committed to going out there and seeking some sort of seal, whether it's signing the Student Data Privacy Pledge or any other seal that is out there. They've joined a lot of privacy organizations. They've done a lot, really. And like you said, they've participated in the IMS the Trusted Apps program, where they've helped develop the criteria for vetting their own policies. Um, and then just talking to leadership. A lot of the times when we work and when we collaborate with the supplier, we talk to leadership, and we all believe that if leadership has a thorough understanding of privacy, and if they understand, they have knowledge of FERPA and COPPA and a lot of the different privacy regulations that are out there in the landscape of privacy, it's obvious when they talk about it, and they show their passion for it. They've gone through it hundreds of times with a lot of districts, that they have a good understanding of privacy, and that they want to do whatever they can Because when I have these conversations, they're very passionate. A lot of these founders and leaders of these suppliers are either they're former teachers, they've worked in education for a long time, so they understand that privacy is important, and a lot of things that you can and cannot do is important to them, and their passion comes through with their involvement and their I would say their commitment to privacy definitely comes through on those phone calls, and their commitment to other just different areas in privacy.
So a follow-up to that, can an organization get the Trusted App Seal if they're transparent but don't meet expectations in most areas? So is there a threshold there?
Yes, so they have to meet expectations or meet it with reservations. And so I would say part of the meeting, the reason why we allow them to get the seal if they meet expectations with reservations, because not all organizations are the same. Not all schools have the same set of, I would say, standards or criteria for, or how the level of strictness they have for if if a supplier is serving ads that are just products, or they're serving some random ads, or if they're sharing, your third party data, data with third parties with a specific supplier, and then another school doesn't like this specific supplier. So there's a lot of different ways that not all schools are the same. So we've included that if you meet the expectations with reservations, you can still get that seal, but it's still up to the schools whether they want to use you or not, whether it's okay that you meet this expectation with this reservation, letting them know what this reservation is and why we do see it as a reservation, because we know that some schools will accept it and some schools won't. So we give you that, we still give schools that level of, they can choose how they want to either push it to, no, we're not going to use it because of that reservation, or yes, we will because that's not an issue to our district or institution.
Okay, and then last question that I'm, what is your process to update the rubric?
So right now, since the rubric, it was finally, I would say, pushed through a few months ago, and there are a few areas where we could do some improvements. I would say we call out to all of our members who are interested in taking part, and we have a task force, an app vetting task force that goes through the rubric. So we reach out to all of our K-12 members. We'll do I'm not sure if that's a press release card, or we do an all call to all of our members if you're interested in participating in the process. And once it's announced, we take everyone who's ready to participate in that process, and then we go through it. But we will be doing so next year, updating that rubric as well. So just stay on the lookout for that email, or that sort of that all call.
Okay, great. Looks like that's it for questions. Monica and panel, are there any parting remarks?
Yeah, absolutely. So just wanted to, again, thank those that attended as well as our panelists. We've recorded this, so we'll be able to share it. And we encourage you to reach out to any one of the panelists for more information about the Trusted Apps program and the process from a supplier perspective, or data privacy in general from Daisy. And of course, Kate's valuable experience from a district perspective. So thank you all. We hope you enjoyed it and look forward to seeing everyone soon.